All right. Last time, when we were talking about making the task of reading easy, we pointed to certain important things, including some basic questions that you needed to ask yourself, and then to determine the purpose of your reading, whether that was meant for helping you with your lecture or assignment or test exam, etc. Now, there are today I would like to tell you something about important points that you need to remember while reading. The first point is that for effective academic reading, we should know that it is different from reading for leisure, means something which we read as a pastime or maybe just for the sake of fun or passing our time. For example, reading a newspaper, magazine, they may be at times just to get some kind of refreshment or entertainment from them. Now, to get the most out of academic reading and to use your time effectively, you need to take a strategic approach. So, please attend to this point and remember that academic reading is different from reading some kind of a newspaper or magazine, and when you are involving yourself in academic reading, you need to be strategic. Now, when we say that we need to be strategic, what do we mean by that? To be a strategic in our approach, we need to be selective, and this point had already come in our previous discussion, that we need to be selective, because reading at university amounts to reading with a purpose. Every time you read something and you have a purpose for doing that, there is always a purpose behind reading something academically during your university education. Remember that success at university is often about meeting competing demands and deadlines. This is important, and all of us are well aware of this fact, that there are certain demands, deadlines that we have to meet before we declare ourselves among the ranks of better performers. Therefore, you need to get the most out of your reading in the limited time available. So this is important. Time is a crucial factor for you during the process of reading. Now, there are certain tips that you need to keep in mind when you talk about active reading. And if you remember in the last presentation, those who have forgotten, they can go to the previous presentation, and there we had discussed active reading. So when we talk about active reading, we say that before the process of reading is started, we need to identify certain things, we need to answer certain basic questions. For example, the purpose of reading means, what is the purpose of my reading? And we should always have a purpose in mind when we read something. Then another question, what do I need to achieve by reading this text? For example, there is a text in front of you, you are reading it or you are about to read it. You need to ask yourself, what do you want to achieve from that? Have an idea of why you are reading, what you are looking for, and what you want to achieve. This again is important, because you should know your purpose, you should know your goal before reading something. Working out why you are reading will determine the way you will read it. Now this is important. As long as you do not know the purpose of your reading, how can you truly benefit from that? So before reading something, you should answer this question to yourself, that see, this or that particular objective or purpose I have in reading this particular text, and then you can have some kind of achievement after reading that text. Then you talk about the purpose of reading. So when you talk about the purpose of reading, there may be several reasons or several purposes for reading something. For example, to locate specific information, means there is some specific information you are looking for. For example, you are reading an article about the population growth, and you just want to know as to what is the exact rate of population growth in our country, and you want to figure out that statistical information. So for that you are reading the whole article, not the whole article, you are just going and trying to locate that information, and once you have got that information, then you don't need to read the whole of the article. Maybe another person can be looking for some other purpose. Like for example, some other student may say that no, he or she is not looking for some specific information, but looking for understanding difficult ideas. Means there are certain difficult things in the text, and he or she has decided to read that in order to understand those ideas. Maybe there may be another person who would say that I want to gain an overview of something, means just to get the idea as to what this whole text is about. So there can be several different reasons for reading something. Now, whatever the purpose is, without going into the debate of the purpose that you have for reading something, we believe that there are certain reading strategies that all of us need to employ while reading a text. They include the first one, and if you look at the mind map, you also see the strategies. And in the strategy, the first one is previewing or preview. This is basically like to get an overview. Previewing the text is to get an overview. You read to get an idea of what it is about without actually reading the main body of the text. You preview to help you decide whether a book or journal is useful for your purpose. You may also preview it to get a general sense of the article structure to help you locate relevant information. It may also help you to identify the sections of the text you may need to read and the sections that you can omit. So when you preview, you start by reading the title of the article or the chapter and author's, the details of the author. Then if there is an abstract, you read that, because that is also going to help you a lot in answering so many questions. Then you can read only the parts that jump out. Jump out means something they are more visible. For example, the main headings and subheadings. You can go for chapter summaries, any highlighted text. There can be illustrations, examples, graphs, tables, diagrams, captions. All these things can include part of the previewing process, in which you will come to know about the basics about the text. You can also go for reading the first sentence of each paragraph. So this is how we identify previewing. I hope this is now clear to you when we say that you need to apply the strategy of previewing before reading. So title, author details, abstracts, headings, subheadings, summaries, highlighted text, diagrams, graphs, tables, charts, all these are part of the previewing process. Another strategy that we use normally for during our reading process is scanning. Now, if some of you remember, I had already issued certain handouts to you, certain notes in which we had this scanning and skimming in detail. Just for the sake of contextualizing this discussion, scanning involves reading to find a particular piece of information located in material that is otherwise of no interest to the reader. For example, using an index at the end of a book, looking at the book chapters, etc. Means when you scan something, you scan it for some specific information. You don't need to read the whole text. You just go and look at that information, and this information may be lying anywhere, and once you have located your information, your task of reading that material is done. The other one is skimming, and it is reading rapidly, you can say, or reading through a text to get an overall impression about the material. You just go through the whole text. You just focus the content words, the key ideas, and you just want to form an opinion or an impression of the material or of the author. Means, for instance, you can be looking quickly at the headings, subheadings, or bold type words that mark the introduction of new concepts. So there can be two purposes of skimming: to locate a specific word, fact, or idea quickly, or to get a rapid general impression of the material. And then you have another strategy of intensive reading. Here, the emphasis is on details that support the main points picked out at the skimming level. Intensive reading involves learners reading in detail with specific learning aims and tasks. Then we have slow reading. Slow reading is also important because science textbooks are heavily illustrated. So it is important for the reader to make a connection between the visual illustrations and the text, or to interpret the text which may not be accompanied by heavily worded text. Slow reading is intentional reduction in the speed of reading carried out to increase comprehension or pleasure. The concept appears to have originated in the study of philosophy and literature as a technique to more fully comprehend and appreciate a complex text. Think about the way you would read to get a broad idea of what an article might be about, compared to how you would read to understand a complex and detailed concept. You might use previewing for the first task, and intensive or critical reading for the selective. Second part means, when you are reading something, sometimes previewing may help, sometimes intensive reading may help, sometimes critical reading may help. So we say that we need to be selective about what we read, and this I hope is making sense to you. Apologies for a little distraction, but the point that we have so far focused related to the strategies that we need to remember when we read something. And among the strategies, we talked about previewing, and that was basically meant to get something about the text without going into the details. Then we talk about scanning, then we talked about skimming, and then intensive reading. And slow reading, of course, is also one important thing, because this is more so for science students who do not um, like who are not much theoretical in comparison to the art students. When we see that the science books are loaded with diagrams and graphs, and reading them and understanding them may be more important. So for that, every science student is expected to focus on the text, and then to bring that information that is gained from the text and apply the same on the graph or on the image, to make the process of understanding and comprehension more fulfilling and fruitful. So then there we employ the strategy of slow reading to make or to maximize the benefits of our reading process. So to sum up, this was basically a continuation of the previous presentation, in which we tried to learn as to how can we make the process of reading easier for ourselves. And then we started from certain questions that we needed to ask from ourselves, and then we talked about the purpose of our reading, and then we talked about certain strategies that would help us in maximizing our reading experience. So I hope this is all from me now. If you have any question, you have any queries, you can post your comments, and I will be more than happy to reply and to correct myself also if I have made certain mistakes, because I believe that these skills are not theoretical. We need to have practical lessons for learning them and for applying them. So it may be difficult to explain things purely theoretically. So I'm all here to attend to your queries and concerns. Thank you very much.